Tonight, the future of St. Louis hangs in the balance. Two leaders, two visions, one critical decision for a shrinking city facing a pivotal crossroads. First, the challenger, alderwoman Cara Spencer, who says St. Louis is falling short where it matters most. Crumbling infrastructure, basic city services, slow emergency response, and trust in government.
If the city can get the basics right, the sky is the limit.
Across the stage, the incumbent.
My opponent says she wants to take us back to basics. But I say we're not going back.
Mayor Tishaura Jones won the trust of voters 4 years ago, promising to transform St. Louis into a safer, stronger, and more equitable city. But has her long-term vision delivered enough tangible results to earn a second term? From violent crime to economic revitalization, from state control of our police to restoring faith in City Hall. Tonight's debate, tackling the issues that define our city's identity and its future. The stakes couldn't be higher. On April 8th, voters decide. Will St. Louis continue on Mayor Jones' path of transformational reform, or will they embrace Spencer's call to rebuild step by step from the ground up? From the 5 on Your Side studios in downtown St. Louis, this is the final debate in the St. Louis race for mayor. Good evening and welcome to the final debate in this 2025 St. Louis mayor's race. I'm Mark Maxwell, alongside the St. Louis American's news editor, Alvin Reed.
For the next hour, you will hear the two top candidates running to be mayor of St. Louis debate live. Candidates will have 60 seconds to make an opening statement, 60 seconds to answer each question, and 90 seconds for closing statements at the end.
At our discretion, we may give 30 seconds for rebuttals or for clarifications. When the candidate's time is running out, they'll see visual time cue cards here in studio. Of course, we welcome a healthy debate on all these big issues, but we have asked candidates to allow the other to speak uninterrupted. Candidates have agreed to these rules and we will enforce them.
Let's meet the candidates. Tishaura Jones, the current mayor of St. Louis, and Cara Spencer, who is currently serving as alderwoman in the city's 8th Ward and chair of the Budget and Public Employees Committee. You both have earned important titles in high office, but tonight you're candidates running for the same job. So we'll address you by your last names, Ms. Jones and Ms. Spencer.
And because you're running for a job, we're going to approach this like a job interview. We'll ask hard questions about your record and challenge your positions and past statements so voters at home can evaluate how you would answer them and how well you perform under pressure. Ms. Jones, right outside our downtown studio. Well, let's start first actually with opening statements. Coin toss determined that you'll go first. So Ms. Jones, first to you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. When's the last time you used a typewriter or carbon paper? Well, that's some of what I inherited when I became mayor in 2021. I also inherited a global pandemic, a hiring freeze, and homicides were at an all-time high. And so we got right to work making sure that our city became safer, healthier, and stronger. It started with asking you how you wanted us to spend pandemic aid, and you told us to spend it on infrastructure, making sure we're protecting our small businesses, people, and upgrading the government experience. Since then, we've made real progress on public safety. Homicides are at the lowest that they've been in decades, and we're no longer in the top 10 most dangerous cities in America. We did that together. We've also built over 3,500 units of housing, demolished over 900 buildings, and helped over 800 seniors stay in their home through our Healthy Home Repair program. In my next term, I hope to rebuild our airport because we deserve a world-class facility, and also expand our public transit through the Metrolink Green Line. But we have to do this work together and keep moving St. Louis forward. And I look forward to our discussion this evening.
And Ms. Spencer, 60 seconds to you.
Thank you. Thank you, KSDK, Mark, Alvin, for hosting us, and to your viewers for tuning in. This is an important election cycle and a turning point for the city of St. Louis. I believe it can be. Our region is picking up steam. In fact, we're growing as a region for the first time since 2010. But meanwhile, here in the city of St. Louis, we are losing population faster than we have in decades. My vision for St. Louis looks like 1,000 things, capitalizing on our strategic location, the long list of assets that we have, including cultural amenities, historic buildings, and top-notch universities. But we can't grow our population if we can't serve our population. We need an elected leader that doesn't resort to name-calling at any level, but really focuses on urgency and doing the job of being a city, a commitment to transparency, good government, and an unwavering focus on delivering city services that our residents need and deserve. The time for change is now. We can't wait 4 more years. The time for change is here.
All right, let's begin. Ms. Jones, right outside our downtown studio at this major intersection, this pothole has threatened the safety of thousands of commuters for at least 32 days and counting. The city was notified about it 32 days ago, and yet still tonight, right before coming out here for the debate, the city's pothole map lists it as repaired, when very clearly it's not. According to statistics your office compiled under LUSTAT, these records we got under the Sunshine Act, as many as 70% of potholes or other requests for service at the Streets Department are overdue. And it can take anywhere from 44 to 56 days on average for someone to come fix it. Some complaints have been in the city's backlog for more than a year. The backlog of overdue service requests 3 to 5 times larger than it was under Mayor Slay. What are you doing to hold anyone accountable for results like this?
Well, thank you for that question. And yes, that is unacceptable. But let's talk about what happens, how potholes start, because the potholes are there because we haven't repaved the streets. And in order to repave the streets, we have to use the alderperson's ward capital in order to do that. Who's the alderman for downtown? Cara Spencer. And how much money does she have in her ward capital? $1.4 million that could be used to pave the streets and to make sure that no more potholes appear on downtown streets and in her ward. So we want to make sure that we're using ward capital in a way that and responding to citizens that make sure that the streets get repaved and so we don't have more potholes.
Ms. Spencer, you have 30 seconds to respond. Are you responsible for that?
Look, we have paving money in the 8th Ward account that has been sitting there for 2 years because the street department has been unable and unwilling to pave the streets in the 8th Ward. You can talk to the 8th Ward residents who've seen the long list of pavings that have gone unanswered. We have a street department that isn't focused on doing the job of a street. We saw that in the latest snowstorm. At the end of the day, we need a paving plan that looks like paving the city streets. We need to take the parking funds that have been relegated to a slush fund in the treasurer's office and put them back into the streets. We shouldn't be relying on ward capital, and we certainly shouldn't be keeping ward capital in funds that have been allocated by alderpersons to the street department to pave our streets.
You'll have more time here in a moment too, but Ms. Spencer, some combination of federal pandemic funds and RAMS money might one day fill these potholes or repave our streets, but in the interim, we are the ones paying for them in auto repair shops, missed days from work, and in extreme cases, sometimes car crashes or even bodily injuries. If the city cannot expedite these repairs now, then should it at least pick up the tab for the damage it might cause to our vehicles?
Oh, this is such a good question. I mean, I have to tell you, the day of the election for my 8th Ward, I broke the axle in the front of my car, hitting the last pothole that my 2008 Honda could take. And this is a real cost of living issue for many of our residents. You know, I think that first and foremost, the city should be focusing on doing the job of paving our streets and filling potholes. It looks like holding our utility companies accountable for digging once, streamlining the street department, and making sure that the funds that we're collecting on our streets through our parking fees and fines don't go into a slush fund, don't go into a campaign donor contract to do parking fees, but actually go into the streets that we drive on. It looks like fully staffing a street department and having a street director, appointing people to the positions that can do the job of directing our street department. And we saw again, through the snowstorm, that we have leadership in these departments that don't even recognize that we have snow on our streets 2 weeks later. We have got to be accountable for hiring and appointing people to the positions of leadership that can really do the job and deliver the city services to our citizens.
Ms. Jones, she mentioned campaign donors and your appointees. Would you like to respond for 30 seconds?
Well, you know, it's easy to criticize from the sidelines when Alderwoman Spencer has no experience in running any departments or running anything in city government, but maybe her committee. You know, we have moving the city forward is hard work, and the men and women in the Streets, Traffic, and Refuse Department show up every day to make sure that they are filling service requests for the citizens of St. Louis, and it's all done under the engineers that work for that department and make sure that we're delivering city services.
All right, a lot of topics to get to here. Ms. Jones, a two-part question for you now. In a press release just last week, noting the city's continuing decline in population, you said, quote, people want to move to a city that has a successful school system, among other things. Were you blaming the city's exodus on SLPS? And while the mayor has no direct control over the school board, what other steps might you take, even if that means thinking outside the box, to make our school system a more successful one?
I'm absolutely not blaming the school system for our population decline. I work with our school leaders all across the city, whether our children are in public, private, or independent schools, making sure that they have what they need from our partnership in city government. But we have to look at this, holistically of why families choose to either go or stay in our city. And that's, I would say, it's a myriad of things. There are people that I know that have left the city, not just for education, but for other opportunities, other job opportunities. We have to make sure that we are attracting businesses that will pay good working good working jobs. For example, with Procter & Gamble, when they expanded in North St. Louis, they were able to add more jobs, and we were able to have a partnership with St. Louis Public Schools to make sure that those high school graduates got first access to those jobs.
Ms. Spencer, 30 seconds.
Look, I mean, the school does come at this, I have to say, from a slightly biased perspective. I'm a St. Louis public school parent and proud to be that. I think it's important that we do support our school system. I mean, look, our school board, our elected school leaders are volunteers. And if I'm elected mayor, I'm going to have an educational professional dedicated to schools that are aware of issues and are acting as a support system when we have issues like a lack of busing and when our budgets turn upside down. We need to support our school districts, and that starts by having proper staffing in the mayor's office to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, after the Wall Street Journal recently said that we were in a doom loop, the New York Times found a ray of hope that might help reverse it. Their reporting highlighted new momentum in our city attracting new foreign immigrants to live here in St. Louis. But now the Trump administration is revoking funds that would help resettle refugees, and Governor Kehoe is ordering police in Missouri to collect and report the immigration status of people arrested, even for low-level crimes. So what city resources are you prepared to commit to attracting or protecting immigrants who want to make St. Louis their new home?
This is a great question, Mark. We are in the process of becoming a welcoming city as we speak. And in 2023, I opened the Office of New Americans to make sure that we can connect our new St. Louisans to jobs, to housing, and to whatever else those families need to thrive. We work with our community partners and other organizations on the ground to make sure that new St. Louisans know that they are protected and they are welcome here because any foreign-born individual who chooses St. Louis as their home immediately becomes a new St. Louisan. And we're working with all of our community partners to make sure they know that they are safe and know that their city has their back.
And Ms. Spencer, a new question on a similar topic to you. You recently said the most important thing pertaining to Governor Kehoe's plans to take over the city police department was to, quote, you said working with the governor to make sure that the city has a seat at the table. If you're at that table and the board instructs the chief and the rank and file to start implementing aggressive deportation searches or perhaps just stop and frisk policies, how will you respond?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's imperative that our police officers, our law enforcement are enforcing the laws and nothing further. I think it's important that we are addressing criminal activity in our communities and not focusing on looking for whether or not somebody has the proper paperwork to be here. And I will work very hard to protect that. I mean, I think it's important that within our police department, we have bilingual services, bienvenidos a San Luis. We have to be able to speak languages, to be welcoming to our communities, and that looks like diversity within our police department. But I am committed to making sure that our law enforcement officers are focused on real crimes and not looking for papers. I'm going to be working with our nonprofit community to make sure that we have legal resources and other things to help make sure that we're protecting some of our most vulnerable residents here in St. Louis.
And Ms. Spencer, a quick 30-second follow-up. On March 3rd, you said you would fight the state takeover of the police department in court. Just 10 days later, after the House and Senate approved the bill, you appeared to temper your remarks somewhat when you suggested you'd fight it only, quote, if there's a path to fighting this.
Look,
don't voters deserve to know if you're committed to carrying this fight through in court?
Sure. Look, I mean, the bill, as we have seen it over the last few weeks, has been changing on a day-to-day basis. And I am committed to strongly supporting local control of our police department. I think it's imperative that the city of St. Louis, if at all possible, keep control of our police department. I want our police officers under the guidance of our mayor. I think it's important for policies and to protecting our residents and best building those relationships and building trust within our community. But I am also committed to not wasting taxpayer dollars. I'm committed to doing what's right for citizens and making sure that we're using every effort possible, every path possible to fight for local control.
Quickly, Ms. Jones, is there daylight between you and your opponent on this issue?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's insulting and pathetic for the state to try to take over our police department. And I am going to use every resource available to make sure that we fight this in whatever tools that we have. St. Louisans want a mayor that's going to fight for their beliefs. They voted for having local control of their police department, and they want a mayor that's going to stand up for them.
I think St. Louis.
We're going to continue on here.
All right, the Ferguson Commission identified aggressive enforcement of traffic laws and heavy racial disparities in traffic stops as a root cause of economic justice. Ms. Jones, your opponent recently said she would order police to start cracking down on expired temp tags. You said that's a problem for the state to solve. Do you disagree with Ms. Spencer? Or what role should police play in enforcing these laws?
Look, when our police officers do stop vehicles with temp tags, they do give them tickets. But let's take a step back of what the root cause of this problem is. The root cause is because the state of Missouri for years has allowed people to buy vehicles and not pay for the tax before they drive that vehicle off the lot. And now they've already passed the law to correct that, but that's going to take years to implement. So what I have done in my administration is we offer a loan program for our for people who find themselves in this situation where they can't pay for their tags, and then they pay us back. And that's a revolving loan program that's available to citizens who find themselves in a vulnerable situation. We should not be treating temp tags just like we do common criminals. That's what got us in this problem with Ferguson in the first place, and we cannot unfairly target people who are just poor.
Ms. Spencer, reaction?
Sure. I mean, look, we need to be very mindful, but we have to enforce law. And I'm not talking about folks that have expired plates by just a few months or even a year. I'm talking about folks that have a failure to even have any licenses whatsoever. We're talking about putting red light cameras in. They aren't going to do any good if you don't have a license plate at all on your car. And we have seen time and time again, residents are reporting license plates that are 2, 3, 4 years expired. And at the end of the day, when you're driving recklessly, putting people's lives at risk, and you're failing to license your vehicle, we know that these folks don't have insurance and that they are putting not only the lives of those around them in danger, but the livelihoods. If you get your car crashed by somebody who doesn't have a license plate or insurance, it is truly devastating and life-altering to somebody who's living on a fixed income.
I'm going to move on. Ms. Spencer, last year you filed a bill that would punish reckless drivers by letting police boot their car. If they haven't paid within 5 days, then the city could impound their vehicle. Is that the kind of approach we can expect from you if mayor?
Alvin, this is a great question, and I appreciate you looking into that history. I actually filed 2 bills. The second bill, which I think is an improvement on the first, is modeled exactly off of a bill that was recently implemented in Kansas City, just across the state. And what that bill would do is it really clearly defines what a street takeover is: extremely egregious, dangerous driving that takes over a street and quite literally imperils the lives of those around the driver. And what it does do is empowers the police department to impound that vehicle, remove what is really being driven as a weapon in the city of St. Louis. We have seen, while homicides and some of the criminal activity in the city is going down, that's a good thing, but vehicular manslaughter is skyrocketing. Alvin, we had 20 people killed while walking by a vehicle last year, and this is unacceptable. We have to crack down on what is egregious, reckless driving in the city of St. Louis so our residents, our visitors, and our motorists can be safer in our communities.
Mayor Jones?
I don't know where Alderwoman Spencer's getting that data, because we had 0 people that were killed by a vehicle last year, and vehicular incidents or vehicular pedestrian deaths are down 40% since I became mayor in 2021. So again, she wants to pick the data that she wants to report, but not report and to report misleading and misinformation in order to fearmonger and scare people. I would never do that.
Ms. Spencer, as you've highlighted repeatedly in your campaign, the city always struggles with basic service like trash collection and streetlight repairs. How would you ensure that police resources aren't diverted away from violent crime to enforce minor infractions like expired tags?
I'm talking about reckless driving, Alvin, and that is when you're operating a vehicle like a weapon. And frankly, to say 0 people were killed by a vehicle last year, Mayor, is just absolutely false and totally disrespectful to folks that have lost their lives at the hands of reckless drivers in our community. It's not about diverting resources, Alvin. It's about protecting our communities. Some of the vehicular manslaughters, the vehicular deaths that I'm talking about, primarily occur in our most vulnerable neighborhoods. These are on roads that are repeat offenders, Natural Bridge, North Grand. We know where dangerous driving takes place regularly, and people are losing their lives on a very regular basis. They're losing their limbs. We had 226 people injured while walking last year. I'm not making these figures up, and as much as you want to throw around gaslighting and name calling as we have in these previous debates, Mayor, this is a very serious issue, and it is very apparent to anybody who walks, rides a bicycle, or drives in the city of St. Louis that reckless driving is an epidemic and one that we absolutely need to take seriously if we're going to move our city forward.
Well, since we want to talk about gaslighting, when we want to talk about Natural Bridge, the improvements, the improvements that have been made on Natural Bridge have reduced pedestrian deaths by over 65%. And our transportation mobility study, along with our Friendly Streets initiative, which is $300 million in transportation upgrades, including traffic calming over the next several years, is going to address this directly, making our streets safer for everyone, no matter how they choose to get around.
I'm going to stay with you, Ms. Jones. According to a public safety survey that came from your office, 70% of St. Louis City voters would prefer someone other than an armed police officer to respond in a car accident. In other cities, including New Orleans, contractors and retired officers respond to car crashes to lighten the load of the city police. Is that something that you're looking to implement here in St. Louis?
Well, we actually do this in a different way. Our Cops and Clinicians program already responds to calls for mental health and substance abuse, as well as our non-police response that responds to people who don't need a police response. And this is the first muscle that you have to build in order to get to that point of possibly using a non-police response to traffic accidents. But the one thing I would caution people about is that in Missouri, we don't have any gun laws. And so that does put those people at risk when they're responding to an accident, because you never know if that person might have a gun, because anybody can carry a gun in the state of Missouri.
Ms. Spencer, if you'd like to respond.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think this is a move in the right direction, making sure that we have non-traditional responses, but we also have to be able to pivot quickly and have police response when necessary. We saw just last night a very unfortunate situation that occurred downtown, a car accident resulting in violence immediately thereafter because of the vehicular accident that resulted in an altercation. So I want to be clear that I think we should be thinking outside the box, and I agree with the respondents there that there has to be non-traditional responses, but we have to be able to have police response as well when needed.
Okay, let's change lanes. Ms. Spencer, you made a very public point about resigning your post on the board at the St. Louis Development Corporation, citing a lack of transparency and frustration with leadership there. But how would you address your critics who see someone who vacated an important oversight role? If you're elected mayor, you just can't walk away from a problem.
Well, you know, the problem in this case was really set by the mayor, unfortunately. And if I'm elected mayor, we'll solve this issue. Let me explain what this is, Alvin. We have the St. Louis Development Corporation. We're a little bit unusual as a city by having our development agency outside of city government, St. Louis Development Corporation. And in this particular case, under this administration, this mayor has chosen to appoint the director, the CEO of the organization, to be the head of the oversight board, of which I was a member. But when you have that conflict, that inherent conflict of interest, the lack of transparency, the failure to provide board members with answers to very vital questions, I felt very strongly and was advised by legal counsel that I could no longer serve in good faith in that capacity. But mark my words, if I'm elected mayor, we will not only never engage in that egregious lack of oversight, that sham of an oversight, that conflict of interest, but we will fix that structure in its entirety.
Ms. Jones?
Yeah, so I think we need a little history lesson here because SLDC was set up by Ms. Spencer's primary advisor, Vince Shamel, and appointments have been like that for decades before I even became mayor. So to criticize it now is really rich and really convenient for the alderwoman. And we have provided, or meaning SLDC has provided every answer to Ms. Spencer's questions, and she decided to quit as a political stunt. Because if she really wanted oversight and if she really wanted to help these businesses, she would have stayed on the SLDC board and continued to vote or turn her camera off, which is what she used to do.
Okay.
If I may, Alvin, I mean, the mayor is making very clear accusations or suppositions about who my advisors are. And Mayor, with all, you have no insight into who is advising me under any capacity. But let me say, when you have an organization that is failing to provide basic information to their board members, you can't expect their board members to put their name on any action that the board has taken. And frankly, we have seen the mayhem coming out of SLDC. The North City Grant Program has been an absolute disaster. The failure to get those funds out, the lists that we were presented were absolutely egregious. They contained businesses that didn't exist, vacant lots, and there was no way in good conscience anybody should be asked to be voting on those types of lists.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Jones, you've said the buck stops with you, but you've also said you take orders from your government attorney, the city councilor, and that you cannot give her a direct order to release documents. Doesn't she work for you? Has she ever ignored a direct order from you or your office?
No, the city councilor has never ignored a direct order from me or from my office. And I see my cabinet members as teammates. I don't order them around. We have discussions about what's the right thing to do in the situation, given all of the information that we have. And so I don't order the city councilor to do anything but to uphold the laws of the state of Missouri and the U.S. Constitution.
Ms. Spencer, 30 seconds. Would you accept advice from the city councilor, or would you order them to release documents, body camera footage, things of that nature?
Look, I am a strong adherent to transparency and sunshine law, and this is the first city councilor who's chosen not to even release her opinions. Previous city councilors would respond and respect the request for opinions from alderpersons, direct us to make them public, and I think it's an absolute failure of basic sunshine law that this city attorney is not only advising the mayor, but refusing to allow the alderpersons, whom she also represents, to make those opinions public. They're public.
All right, we're going to do a quick lightning round here just to see where you stand on some issues. We'll breeze through these questions without the full 60 seconds. So raise your hand to signify yes. If in the last 2 years, have you called 911? All right, interesting. Another question here. In this period of inflation and rising costs, can either of you commit to not raise taxes in this next 4 years? There's a no. Let's move on. When is, let's ask this question rather. Do you believe that St. Louis should explore merging services with St. Louis County as part of regional collaboration efforts? Or have your, that's the question there. Should there be a city-county merger? Okay.
Well, that's a different question, Mark. You have to ask the question clearly.
Exploring services. Would you
Exploring services, yes.
Merging services with the county?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
And then last question here. We'll open up the mics a little bit for this one. When's the last time you rode public transit? Mayor Jones?
Just last year I rode public transit. I rode it from my house to City Hall.
And Alderwoman Spencer?
Just last week.
Very interesting. All right, let's go back to the 60-second questions here. Ms. Spencer, in 2015, you wrote in the St. Louis American that Metrolink North-South expansion was essential for St. Louis's future. Again, in 2017, you voted for a sales tax hike to pay for it. Now you've called the Green Line a boondoggle due to cost overruns and route changes. What specific adjustments would you make to support this project again, or have your priorities shifted altogether?
Public transit is vital to a successful city, and I absolutely have supported, I have a long history of supporting the North-South Metrolink line. The Green Line is a truncated, much shorter version of what should be an exciting and well-supported expansion of our Metrolink. What I would support is what the initial intent, what voters back in 2017 when they passed that sales tax actually supported, which is a North City, a North-South line that goes from South County through our downtown all the way out to St. Louis County. This was a 33-mile, 17-stop expansion of our light rail. And the Green Line being just over 5 miles, 10 stops, I think not only sets us up to be at the very bottom list of the long list of projects that are seeking federal, much needed federal matching funds to even make this a viable option. And so what I would do, Mark, is make sure that we have a viable, long and expansive expansion that will support the federal matching funded required to make this work financially for our city.
Thank you. A quick 30-second follow-up for Ms. Jones. I want to ask you this. After a recent exchange with you two, your campaign came out and said that Ms. Spencer was wrong in saying that there was no public input. There was some public input, but then weren't there some changes afterward?
There's been public input along the entire project from the time it started back when I funded it with $2 million as treasurer to upgrade the study. And the other thing that Ms. Spencer is leaving out is that, I didn't know that she was all of a sudden a member of the Department of Transportation and could grade projects, because the way that this project is set up now, it should receive a medium rating, given all of the parameters that have been included in this particular project.
Thank you. A full 60 seconds to you, Ms. Jones, because this is an important issue to mobility and the way people can get around our city. You've continued supporting the Green Line despite rising cost and federal funding uncertainty during this Trump administration. How can you justify moving forward with the project when critics argue those funds might be better spent in the short term on bus services or other infrastructure needs?
Well, the tax that we passed for the Metrolink Green Line, we can only spend for the Metrolink Green Line or expanding public transit via a Metrolink unless we take that back to a vote of the people. And we still don't know what's going to happen with the Trump administration. And we are still seeking a federally funded grant agreement for the Metrolink Green Line that's going to take people, that 20% of the people along the line don't have access to a car, and it's going to connect them to the existing lines to go from downtown out to the airport, out to Illinois, so they can get access to jobs, to healthcare, and to education and entertainment.
Ms. Spencer, a quick 30-second response there. Are those tax dollars in a lockbox, or could you use them in other ways?
Look, I think we should consider asking the voters. Look, we have truncated our bus service, our call-a-ride, the services that our existing bi-state has been serving, are in bad need of upgrade. And to me, what this administration is doing is fast-tracking an additional $40 million of expenditures on a project that may not get federal funding. To me, we've got to put ourselves in a position to have a better project with better marking. I'm not interested in a medium graded project. I'm interested in a top line, top of the list, Metrolink and public transit expansion.
A question about the state of the race. Ms. Jones, to you. The morning before the primary, just a few weeks ago, you said you'd like to see changes to our approval voting process so that, quote, if someone wins by a large percentage, then maybe not hold a second round of voting. Only 33% of primary voters ultimately gave you their approval to continue in a second term. Your challenger won approval from 68% of the city's primary voters. Two-part question here. How do you explain such a low approval rating, and what is your path to victory here?
Well, we also want to talk about how the turnout in this election was abysmally low. Only 17% of the people decided that it was important enough to go vote for mayor, for any of the candidates that were on the ballot. And then also, most of my opponent's votes came from one part of town. And that part of town came out, had the largest turnout. So we need to do a better job as candidates, as a community, in making sure that people are excited about voting, or excited about exercising their right to vote. I think that's also inherent in the timing of our elections. This election is right after the presidential election. A lot of people are exhausted after the presidential election, and especially after the last one that was so divisive. So I think that, and yes, I still support that position because it's also important to make sure that we have a longer transition period for whoever wins that election.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer, she mentioned your results in North City. The mayor did beat you in 4 of those large wards in North City. What more can you do to improve, or how do you explain your loss in those wards?
Well, I'll first say that I agree with the mayor that if the candidate has a tremendous advantage in the primary, having a longer ramp for developing the transition would certainly be very, very beneficial to the city of St. Louis. But unfortunately, here we are. We're still battling this out here. That being said, I'm proud of the great strides I've made in North St. Louis from 4 years ago. 35% of the vote, winning the vast majority of wards across the city of St. Louis, and one of those was just by one vote.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I think it's important to recognize
we'll get
that
back to you with more later, but that's your time for now. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to a different topic here. Ms. Jones, you recently fired your appointed head of personnel, Ms. Sonia Jenkins-Gray. You've also criticized how hard it can be to fire someone who has those Civil Service Commission protections. Now, just in the last few hours, your administration is moving quickly to change the rules around hiring the new director. Can you clarify exactly what your administration is trying to accomplish here? And don't the voters and the next mayor deserve a chance to make the decision on that important hiring decision?
Well, what my administration is trying to do is move this process forward. It would be an interim appointment. It won't be a permanent appointment. But let's also take a look at our civil service procedures that haven't been upgraded in decades. We want to make sure that it's easy to hire and easy to get a job at the city of St. Louis, and also easy to hold people accountable. Our current civil service rules are Byzantine and just really complicated to understand. And I think that making sure that it's easier for whoever continues in this job is giving that person a leg up.
A quick follow. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What's your follow-up?
I thought you would finish your remarks. I apologize. Just to clarify, are you confirming here tonight that you would not try to make a permanent appointment, that whoever or whomever you try to put in that position would simply be temporary or interim? No,
we're not making a permanent appointment because we're going to do a nationwide search again for a new personnel director. Hopefully we'll find the right person that will be able to move the city forward and continue the progress that we've made in the personnel department. When I became mayor 4 years ago, we were still using typewriters and carbon paper, and now we're on a cloud-based system, and all of our department directors can be in direct contact with their hiring managers in the Department of Personnel, and we've decreased that time from callback from 9 months or longer to 30 to a little over 30 days.
And Ms. Spencer, a quick question to you there, 30 seconds. How important is that position if you were to appoint it?
Oh, it's vital. It's vital to how the city operates. I mean, we have 40% vacancy in many of our city departments. I think the average across the city of St. Louis right now is 29% vacancy. And so having a top-notch personnel director, and look, if the mayor wanted to change the civil service rules, why on earth are we waiting until 19 days before an election to get rule changes in? This has been something we should have been working on. The mayor should have been working on long before the lightning round in an election cycle.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, despite allocating a combined $107 million roughly that we counted in the transparency portal in federal ARPA money toward building upgrades or affordable housing or shelter initiatives, homelessness has still increased in St. Louis, with demand growing faster than housing capacity. Why haven't these investments yielded faster results, and should voters expect this to be a higher priority in a next term than it has been in this one?
Well, I believe that we have made progress on housing availability in the city of St. Louis, and it's not just the responsibility of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. All of our development agencies are working with other agencies on the ground, CDCs, Habitat for Humanity, and building more housing. And we can't just build housing in just one or two parts of town. We have to look at our entire city. We are right now building homes in parts of our city that haven't seen mortgage generation in decades through our partnership with Tabernacle CDC, for example. And I met a young woman at a block party who kept watching this house as it was going up. And she said, "That's going to be my house." And lo and behold, a few months later, she was able to get keys to that house for her and her daughter to start a new life. This is the kind of house, and we also have a moonshot goal of building 10,000 new units by the year 2030, half affordable, half market rate. We have to build more housing, and we have to build it faster.
Ms. Spencer, a full 60-second question to you. You've criticized the symbolism of that fence the mayor had installed surrounding City Hall, and you've criticized the rapid removal of the homeless encampments that were there. I imagine you would also not allow a tent camp on the City Hall front lawn. What would you have done differently, and how do you explain your present vote that effectively blocked the passage of a board bill to expand shelter capacity?
Sure. I mean, look, I've talked about the fence around City Hall closed for restoration that went up in October of 2023, a year and a half ago. And I think it's in time that the city of St. Louis, that the mayor's office gets serious about working with our homeless providers. You know, we just recently, the administration finally agreed to meeting regularly, monthly with the COC. This is something we need to be doing year after year, not just during campaign season. We have to have a commitment to protecting lives, saving lives, and providing warming options when the weather is dangerously low. That looks like a warming bus. It looks like homeless shelters for emergency spaces beyond just single people, but can accommodate families. And we have to get serious about a plan to serve our unhoused.
Ms. Jones, today you stood outside the Medium Security Institution and announced the beginning of the demolition of the workhouse. Activists and elected officials, including your challenger, called to close and demolish the workhouse because it was such a symbol of oppression. But your opponent has argued the way you went about executing the transition of combining all the detainees into one rundown facility resulted in a spike in jail deaths. When you look back at how you made the changes, is there anything you should have done differently?
Well, people who've never managed anything think they can change everything. And it's easy for my opponent to criticize when I don't even think that she's ever been to the CJC. And yes, I will totally accept that our jail death spike. And when they did, we made the proper changes to address it. We have a new healthcare provider that's overseen by our health department. And since then, our jail deaths are down to 2. Now, still one death in our jail is one too many, but we are making progress. We also hired a new commissioner in Doug Burris, who's already making changes to make sure that we reduce our recidivism rates and we continue to treat our detainees who are still not guilty until they are proven guilty, to make sure that they receive the treatment that they need and also that they are treated with dignity and respect.
Ms. Spencer, have you been to the CJC?
I have not been to the CJC, and let's talk about who else hasn't been in the CJC. The Oversight Board, lawyers, lots of people have been prevented from getting into the CJC. And Alvin, we absolutely needed a better plan, and that looked like making sure we had locks, we had appropriate staffing, and that was the failure to actually put the plan, the process in place to moving people from the workhouse to the CJC absolutely fell in the mayor's office, and it was an abysmal failure. We've seen death spike there, and absolutely reprehensible refusal to engage in transparency and openness to the general public and those folks involved in the oversight.
Okay, stay with you, Ms. Spencer. What do you say to your critics who find your messaging confusing on the workhouse, and what is your guiding principle when it comes to reforming the jail and criminal justice system?
My guiding principle is building trust and transparency, building faith in the system. And, you know, I do want to come down harder on some crimes in our community, but it's imperative that if we're going to do that, that we be trusted to house people when they are waiting trial. The mayor's absolutely right. These are not convicted criminals. These are folks just simply awaiting trial. And we have got to do our part in making sure that they have access to healthy conditions, that we can be trusted to maintain people's lives when they are in our custody. And trust and transparency is my guiding light when working through this, Alvin. It needs to be the guiding light of our broader community.
Ms. Jones, the final 30 seconds, the final word on that issue.
You know, it's easy to criticize when you've never even been a part of it or never managed it. You know, we have made significant strides in taking care of our detainees over the past 4 years. But I think people need to remember that a lot of these issues predate my administration. But when it got to my desk, we made the necessary changes to make those changes to make sure that our people are healthier and we're moving forward.
That's absolutely not true. The deaths spiked under your leadership, Mayor, and
when it
became apparent that we had a problem with the leadership in the Justice Center, you failed to take action. The Board of Aldermen, the public, we were calling for action, and you sat on it and you sat on it and you sat on it and you failed. You did not take action. We sat there and we had the same director for years, and the spikes, the deaths were spiking.
We appreciate the distinction here.
May I respond?
10 seconds.
You know, Ms. Spencer also fails to recognize that the CJC commissioner has civil service protection. So we have to make sure that we are following every protection for our civil service employees before we just fire someone and leave someone open for a lawsuit.
It was obvious we had issues.
And those appointments are a part of this. Perhaps we can get to questions about judgment in those appointments. I want to move on to influence in campaigns. Ms. Spencer, you've received large contributions from developers like Bob Clark. Your opponent says you will be beholden to him and others. How do we know that you won't be beholden to Bob Clark or other donors, and what safeguards might you put in place to ensure campaign contributions from developers don't influence your policies?
Great question. And I have to say, it's easy to see why my opponent has concerns. I mean, some of her largest donors have been the recipients of no-bid contracts, contracts for parking, ARPA Fund award winners. The same guy who was, by the way, trying to have me recalled for fighting the privatization of the airport is one of the mayor's biggest contributors and received a large slug of ARPA funds to do ARPA data work. So it's easy to see, but that's the mayor's track record and not mine. I, on the other hand, have a long track record of fighting against special interests, fighting against slumlords, and fighting against wrongdoing in our community. And so for the mayor to make these accusations of pay to play are absolutely baseless. My track record speaks for itself, Mark.
Ms. Jones, have you given donors preferential treatment? 30 seconds.
Absolutely not. And that's rich for Ms. Spencer to say that Bob Clark doesn't control her, because she's sending pictures with him everywhere. And the only reason why Bob Clark isn't in jail for tax credit fraud is because the statute of limitations expired. And then also, he was the main one who supported airport privatization. And also, it's really, I'd say it's a real coincidence that Ms. Spencer's PAC received a $10,000 donation from the Bank of Washington, who controls all of Paul McKee's interests, on the day that we sent LRA or LCRA letters getting eminent domain from his property.
All right,
we're going
to continue on this issue. I'm going to ask Ms. Jones a more pointed question for a full 60 seconds. You've seized on the political contributions. You can see it here now from Bob Clark. You've even compared him to Elon Musk and shared posts on social media that accuse him of using racist dog whistles. But this is the very same Democratic donor who just hosted the new chair of the DNC and the same developer who's building the Obama Presidential Library. If other high-profile Democrats across the country can get along so well with Bob Clark to get work done, why can't you?
I think you need to ask that to Bob Clark. He is trying to buy this mayor's office just like Elon Musk just bought the presidential office. And your viewers who are watching this debate right now should be very, very concerned about the amount of money that he has either given to Ms. Spencer, raised for her, or got others to raise for her, because he's going to want something in return.
A lot to respond to there, Ms. Spencer, but can you please include a response about the airport privatization? Would you ever consider that if you were elected mayor?
No, look, I fought, I led the fight against the privatization of the airport, and I'll continue to do that. And look, I fall in a long line. The amount that Mr. Clark raised for my campaign is pennies compared to what he raised for Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and I am proud to stay on that long list. And he wasn't trying to, if the mayor wants to accuse those elected officials of being bought out by Bob Clark, I'd join the line. But at the end of the day, I have made no promises to Bob Clark. I've made no promises to any of my campaign contributors. And unlike the mayor, my track record does not include no-bid contracts to any of my campaign contributors.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
All right, Ms. Spencer, you've criticized the lack of transparency in Mayor Jones' administration, but you've been vague about your own plans for open government. What specific steps would you take to ensure greater transparency in your administration?
Well, timely responses to sunshine requests, not only in the city of St. Louis, but through SLDC. We need to have an open transparency within our city councilor's office. The opinions that are coming from our city attorney, which, by the way, under our city charter were required to be public until very recently, need to become public again. We need to have an adherence to sharing data that we're collecting about the city services that we're providing. Mark mentioned at the front of this, the pothole and the time it takes to perform basic city services. The mayor's office, the city has been collecting data through something they're calling LoosDat, refusing to share that with the general public without sunshine requests. This is a lack of transparency that is appalling. Under my administration—
Ms. Jones, lack of transparency in your office?
There's no lack of transparency in my office. I don't know what Alderwoman Spencer is talking about. And if she thinks that she can become mayor and just wave a magic wand and poof, transparency appears, then I got something for her. I got a bridge to sell her. You know, we are dealing with some really antiquated systems in city government that we have worked over the last 4 years to upgrade. We've upgraded our finance software. We've upgraded our personnel software so we can get the data, good data, to make decisions going forward. And we've done the hard work to make sure that we've laid a strong foundation for our city to continue to grow.
Ms. Spencer, I may have cut you off early. My apologies. Go right ahead.
That's okay. I mean, look, transparency is important, and we absolutely have a lack of transparency, a failure to respond reasonably to sunshine requests, the absolutely astronomical. Mark, you know, some of the quotes that this station has been given for sunshine requests are absolutely off the charts and absolutely an anomaly compared to previous administrations. If I'm elected mayor, we'll get back to the old reliable system of responding with reasonable timelines and certainly reasonable cost requests for sunshine requests.
Thank you. A question about legislative priority and leadership style. Ms. Jones, when Board of Aldermen President Megan Green was sworn in to replace the indicted former president of the board, you said that her arrival would usher in a new era of collaboration over conflict. Yet after you endorsed a plan to spend the city's Rams money on a number of social supports like early childhood education or college tuition programs, that compromise deal collapsed and the president blamed aldermen of being drunk on the job. Two-part question for you. Is it wise to spend one-time funds on long-term programs, and do you still trust this president of the board to pass your agenda?
So my office worked with the two alders who put those bills together, Alderwoman Saunier and Alderwoman Boyd, to come to a compromise. And through that compromise, we developed a series of funds that we would be spending the interest on those funds, keeping the principal to still earn interest as the years come. I think that it's important that some of these funds were also designated for public-private partnerships. We can't do this alone in government, and we shouldn't. We have to rely on our civic and our faith partners to help us take care of our communities. And so the passage of that bill was just the first step in us starting to negotiate public-private partnerships in order to grow these funds and not just for one-time programming.
Ms. Spencer, 30 seconds to respond.
Sure. I mean, look, there was a lack of leadership in the mayor's office to begin with, which is why the alderpersons were trying to put together a plan to spend the Rams funds. We've been sitting on the ARPA funds for 4 years now. There's been a failure to get the vast majority of those funds out the door. And look, we just need leadership in the mayor's office to direct these big projects. And that's what we've failed to see over the last 4 years.
We're going to stay with Rams money for a second because this is an issue that's going to affect the next mayor will spend the Rams money, right? Ms. Spencer, you supported many of the social programs introduced by this administration, but you've also criticized the way they were implemented. More recently, you called that push to spend roughly 10% of the Rams money on early childhood education, quote, short-sighted. Does that mean you're ruling out spending any Rams money at all on early childhood education? And is that a type of program that deserves government support?
I think early education is absolutely a type of program that deserves public support, but it has to be done in a way that is reliable and has a long-term funding support system. And the Rams funds, a one-time slug in the arm, is not a long-term viable funding source, and it certainly isn't one that can serve reliably the entire city of St. Louis. The plan that was put forward was really going to only affect a very small segment of the population, and to me, that is not adequate. So checking the box on a political solution for a much-needed problem, a much-needed solution, such as early childhood education, is a failure and really misrepresents what we really need to be doing for our community. I think we've got to be investing those in a way that turns those funds into a long-term income stream, and it's got to be directed into a funding stream for the future.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, 30 seconds.
Well, if you're talking about that small percentage of the population being city employees, because that's what the final negotiation point was, and this was not a failure of the mayor's office. Appropriations bills start in the Board of Aldermen, and the Board of Aldermen decided not to act and not to pass the bill. So let's be clear here, and let's tell the truth for a change. And we were starting to make sure that these funds for the people bucket, as we called it, were for city employees. So childhood, early childhood for city employees, as well as covering college for our city employees as well.
But Mayor,
thank you.
appropriation bills start with the sentence, a bill
It starts in the board.
No,
it starts
Mayor,
in the board.
it starts with language that says a bill recommended by the Board of Estimate
but
and
it
Apportionment.
starts in the board. It has to pass
Read
the
bill.
board first.
You need to read a bill.
You need to.
You guys are giving us a lot to fact check later on. Of course, the mayor's office
That's gonna be
can
fun.
introduce language. The board can pass it. The Board of Estimate and Apportionment can sign off on it later. I wish we had a lot more time, but this does bring us now to closing statements. Each candidate, you're going to have 90 seconds to make a closing statement, your final pitch to voters before voting begins in 3 weeks. Just as we determined with the coin toss at the start, we'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
St. Louis, we've been through a lot together. When I became mayor in 2021, homicides were at an all-time high. We were in a hiring freeze, and over half of our city was left to fail. Think about where we've come and how far we've come together. We've done a myriad of things. We survived a global pandemic. We protected city employees, and we did that together. Our crime is improving. We're no longer amongst the top 10 most dangerous cities in the country. We did that together. I will never shy away from doing the right thing just because I might lose political points. And I will never shy away from my values just for a six-figure check to my campaign. This is about doing the work. And doing the work of moving St. Louis is hard work. But St. Louis, there's nothing that we can't do together.
And now, Ms. Spencer, you have 90 seconds for your closing statements.
St. Louis, like many of you, I've been frustrated over the last 4 years. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with COVID funds squandered, corruption in city government, city departments, and a failure of basic city services like filling potholes and picking up trash. And like many of you, I don't feel safer. I'm running for mayor because I believe in St. Louis. I know we can do better. My vision for St. Louis looks like a bustling downtown, a flourishing riverfront, and neighborhoods north and south that are safer and growing. But we can't think big if we can't get the basics right. We need a city government that's focused on delivering services that you pay for as taxpayers and that you deserve as community residents. I'm asking your viewers tonight to join me in a large and growing coalition of elected leaders north and south, the St. Louis Democratic Party, labor organizations, and 68% of St. Louisans in voting for change. St. Louis, it's time to put us back on track and back on the map.
And candidates, a bit unorthodox here, but because we wanted to give you the full 90 seconds to respond, didn't use all of it. We have a little overtime here, so we're going to improvise here. I want to start with Ms. Spencer, and then we'll go to Ms. Jones. If you can think back on your political career, to your time in office, is there something that you look back on now, and maybe in a moment of reflection can say, I wish I had that one back. It was a regret of mine. Ms. Spencer?
A regret. I wish we had gotten the reckless driving bills through sooner. Every single life that we lose, every person injured, every fatality, feels heavy for somebody like me who uses my bicycle, my two legs to get around the city of St. Louis. We've got to do better at protecting our non-traditional folks that are getting around transit residents in the city of St. Louis.
And Ms. Jones?
One of the things I look at over my political career that I wish I would have done differently is the snow removal. I apologize to all of your viewers who were frustrated during the snowstorm. We didn't pivot fast enough. We were using an old strategy that didn't meet the moment. And so when we decided to pull in other partners to help us remove the snow and the trash, we were able to be successful. But that is one thing that I wish that I could do differently.
And in the last time we have left here, I will issue a sincere word of gratitude, both of you candidates, for showing up not just here, but to 2 other televised debates, a radio debate, and to many countless community events. Depending on how this election turns out, no one can say that the voters of St. Louis were not informed, and that's due in large part to your involvement and cooperation here. We thank you for that civic participation. That's all of our time. Thanks to both of our candidates, for you viewers at home for tuning in, for joining us, and to Elvin Reed.
Thank you.
Pleasure moderating with you. Thanks for joining us. The election, April 8th. Make a plan right now. Go vote. We have instant reaction coming up in a few moments on 5 Plus, where you can watch for free. Have a great night.